Good morning and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That is the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. This is our big NBA guy, Nick Wright. He's also our big NFL guy, NHL guy, and MLB guy.
I love
so
it.
we'll just
Not so much hockey.
That
Let's
in.
not lie
Not
to
so
people.
much NHL because we don't lie.
I don't lie to people.
We have a great show this morning.
Yes.
We got 3 jam-packed hours. Dak Prescott might be on the verge of a big extension. Klay Thompson might be sick of his role in Golden State, but we're going to start with last night's action because it was good action. Raptors, Sixers. This series tied at 2-2. This one was up for grabs, and Toronto grabbed it, led, as usual, by Kawhi Leonard. Just 21 points, but it was an absolute rout. 125-89 was the final in this one. Toronto led by as many as 40 at one point. This tied for the second biggest loss in Sixers playoff history. Hard to find just one scapegoat, so I'll give you 2. Joel Embiid, 13 points. Ben Simmons with just 7. Raptors now take a 3-2 series lead. Here is Joel Embiid after the loss.
He sucks. I know I got to do a better job for us to win. I got to do the little things. When I'm needed to score the ball, I got to show up, setting screens. I got to do a better job of rebounding the ball. So that's on me. Can't control my physical condition, but I can also control how much I push myself, and I try to do that. But I just got to do more.
Understatement there. But, Nick, what happened to the Philadelphia 76ers last night?
Well, give the Raptors credit. We had talked up to this point in the series. It had been Kawhi doing his job and his teammates not helping him out. Last night was the first night of this series where Kawhi was actually somewhat inefficient, where Kawhi was fine but not great, but his teammates were exceptional.
Finally.
I mean, the numbers on that, not to throw numbers at you immediately, but the numbers on that speak for themselves as far as games 1 through 4, what Kawhi was doing compared to what his teammates were doing. And then in Game 5, I mean, in Game 5, his teammates accounted for 104 points. They'd been averaging 60. His percentages were down almost 20%, but they were able to, like Jenna said, lead by 40 at one point. So the other Raptors did their job. The other Raptors looked like the team that was 17-5 during the season in the 22 games Kawhi missed. But unfortunately, the bigger story is not, at least in my eyes, about the winners in Toronto. It's about the losing team in Philadelphia that was just dominated from the end of the first quarter to the end of the game. This game, we had a ball game. To be down by 40 in a game that's a 1-point game at the end of the first quarter means those final 3 quarters, you just got obliterated. And see, they got obliterated in a game where Jimmy Butler stepped up. Tobias Harris had a decent game. But the 2 key pieces of the process, Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, for the second straight game did not show up. The second game in a row where they had a chance to take either a 3-1 or a 3-2 series lead. They're 2 crown jewels of that era of tanking. The number 3 pick, Joel Embiid, the number 1 pick, Ben Simmons, were really bad in Games 4 and then again in Game 5, and that's why their season's on the brink in a couple days.
Yeah, I don't want to overreact because the Sixers had plenty of opportunities. And opportunities just not in game number 5, goes back to game number 4. Joel Embiid has a point-blank range layup, opportunity for Philly to take the lead late in the game. Because if that shot goes in, it's a different story.
In Game 4.
In game number 4.
3-1 going into Game 5.
Yes, then you have an opportunity to have a bad game. Joel Embiid's been battling his health, but it didn't go in. So they didn't have any margin. And to think that, Nick, you had pointed out, like, how important game number 5s were with the series tied 2-2. The team that wins that series is winning.
The team that wins that game is in just a gigantic position of strength historically. We've seen teams come back from 3-2. It's not like coming back from 3-1. But
they are winning 80% of the series,
absolutely
though,
right? You're winning just over 80% of the time if you win Game 5 in a tied series.
So for me, the biggest indictment, knowing the coaches have told the players that, how important the game is, how flat just the team was. Now, they came out with an initial burst and everything, and I'm not going to make an excuse for Joel Embiid and his health. Because as a superstar player, we have seen other superstar players under great duress, being, man, deaths in the family to sicknesses. If you're on the court, as my man Shaq said last night, you should be accounted for, and you're not making any excuses. So Joe should be able to do other things to be able to affect the game. But when you don't have your star players, the most critical game of the season, show up, and the other players around them, you don't have any excuses. The 76ers, this was their year. They were trying to go for it. And you talked about LeBron moving to the West, the teams in the East. You wanted to be in a position that when LeBron left, or if LeBron got injured, that you were ready to capitalize, and that's what they did. Elton Brand, as the general manager,
pressed play on this thing. They could have taken the long view. They trade future picks for Jimmy Butler. They doubled down on that. They trade 2 first-rounders for Tobias Harris. They go all in on this moment, seeing the weakness in Boston, seeing that maybe Milwaukee doesn't have the experience. You don't know what Toronto and Kawhi are going to look like in the playoffs. They said, this can be our moment. This can be our year. And while Boston is catching a ton of heat for how disappointing it's going to be that their season ends in the second round, a close second on disappointment would be the Philadelphia 76ers if their season ends in the second round.
That's why you can't predict how a team will be based on what it looks like on paper. It's the same thing we say with the Cleveland Browns. On paper, they have a great starting 5 and everything should work great, and they somehow couldn't find a way to make this team work. But when Toronto's bench is playing like it did, when they can, I think they had 32 points off the bench when he's only giving you 21, Kawhi Leonard, and they're able to dominate like that. How unstoppable. I mean, what else can Philly do to get back into this series when you have Toronto playing with everything working?
Well, this is the Toronto that we had seen during the regular season, and we had a hard time seeing the same thing. Now, we know, man, DeRozan for Kawhi, we feel like Toronto's better. Yep. But their bench has been good. We didn't know the impact of OG, him being out with the appendectomy, you know, how it would affect the team. But we still thought their bench was better. This was the first time in the series that collectively, not just one player, but several players were making contributions. That makes them an elite team in the NBA. We know where Kawhi is right now. We know the level of defense that they can play. If they're going to get back up play like this is what Milwaukee looks like with Giannis.
But there was, and that's all totally true. And to your point, Jenna, games 1 through 4, the bench total for Toronto had 42 points. Last night, they had 32 points. So that is more like what we had seen from the Raptors throughout the year. Granted, not the exact same team. They traded away DeLon Wright and CJ Miles. OG's out with injury.
Right.
But they still should have some depth. But to me, this was only partially about Toronto playing great. And it was just as much about Philly not showing up. There was a play that will be forgotten to history, was forgotten in the moment. But there's a 21-point game at halftime. Philly cuts it to 13. Toronto then goes on a bit of a run. It's a 16-point game midway through the third quarter. It's still a ball game. Philly calls timeout to try to stifle Toronto from going on a real run. And this is what happens coming out of that timeout. You just have the ball taken from you. Kyle Lowry just says, no, we want this. They get a foul. They get the free throws. And from that, then all of a sudden, Toronto's up by 24, and the game's over.
It's deflating.
Philly, nobody showed up for Philly. And I thought Chuck, at halftime, Charles Barkley, made a really interesting point, which is even if you don't hold Embiid's illness against him, he said when you're the star player and you are just publicly and loudly sick,
oh, my gosh, yes.
The way it deflates the energy from your team.
Yes, it puts more pressure on them.
And it saps them, he said, of their confidence.
Yes.
That even if you know you're not going to be able to play up to your level, try to hide that from as many people as possible. Not just the opponent, but your own teammates, because they didn't have the swagger that we see Philly have when Embiid is playing well, and they didn't have the swagger coming out of the gates when we didn't know Embiid was going to be able to play well. And the other element there is they do have the #1 pick of a draft, a guy that you have come to really criticize fairly. You've been on this for over a year.
Who wasn't sick, and who was fully healthy, and who easily could have walked into that spotlight last night.
And you had said that where Ben Simmons has been at his best is when Embiid is almost compromised to a degree, when they need him more. And in this series, Ben Simmons has given you 9.7 rebounds, 5 assists. He has shot 4 total free throws. Now, he's not a high free throw guy, but 4 total free throws in 5 games is ridiculous. He's not getting out and running. He's not attacking. He is not imposing his will on this series at all. And even if Simmons was great last night, they probably lose. but they don't lose by 36. They don't trail by 40 at some point. They have something to build on going into game number 6. The guys they acquired midseason showed up.
Yes.
Tobias showed up. Jimmy Butler showed up once again in this series. The guys who are part of Philly moving forward, they didn't show up in these last 2 games. That's how you go from up 2-1 to down 3-2.
The only consistent on this team has been Jimmy Butler, though. Tobias was MIA
Correct.
for the first couple of games. All right, let's take a break. Coming up, can the Rockets upset the Warriors in Game 5? We will preview that next on FS1, and you can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel on SiriusXM. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We'll get to Rockets-Warriors in a second, but first, Kawhi Leonard driving to the basket, dunks on the entire Sixers defense.
An exclamation point on the first half. I mean, he just glided in, man.
Yeah, he got a little lift, put his elbow on the guy's shoulder a little bit.
Oh, that's what happened.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay, I didn't see that in real time.
Up.
Yeah.
Wait, Kawhi wasn't done. This time, Rises puts Joel Embiid on a poster with the one-handed dunk.
Oh, he quick dunked him on this one. Got up before him.
Yeah.
Joel Embiid, man, I guess his stomach was hurting, his head was hurting.
His
play was
soul
hurting.
was hurting last
Yeah,
night.
his
Nuggets,
soul.
Blazers. Paul Millsap misses the layup, but Jamal Murray there for the grown man putback slam.
Nuggets 1 game away from officially proving me wrong. Called them pretend contenders. You make the Western Conference Finals, you are not a pretend contender. One more win, and they do it. They were dominant last night.
Okay, that's a half an apology. What about the center? What about that dude?
He's not in the highlight.
Nick.
I'm going to get to Jokic.
More
I got
Jamal
something for
Murray.
you.
This
Oh,
time,
damn,
Euro
he's not in the
steps past the D, finishes with the finger roll.
Okay, what about me being right? Nick, are you ready to make him in superstar status?
Who?
Jamal Murray.
No.
Almost?
No.
You
Stop
have been
it.
impressed with him.
I've been impressed. No.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
How about this? You saying that one day he could be top 5 in the NBA in scoring?
Yep.
Now that I am saying.
Okay,
That,
all right.
that
Nice.
I will get on that trip with you.
So much love on this show. Moving on
We're
to
in a good
Rockets, Warriors, pivotal Game 5 tonight at Oracle. Word on the street is that Golden State might be reeling after 2 straight losses.
The streets are talking, Jenna?
Streets are talking. I'm listening. After games where both Steph and Klay laid eggs after the team has seemingly forgotten how to play defense. But Draymond Green, he's not buying it. He praised the team's mindset heading into tonight.
I think our vibe is just great because everybody's just looking at each other like we know if we just correct the effort things, we're just fine. And so everybody's spirits up. Everyone's feeling good about the opportunity that we have, and we didn't feel this way after Game 4 last year. That's for sure. It was Andre just went out, and like. We even spent Game 4 trying to figure out who that 5th guy would be. And so there was just so many questions that need to be answered. Those questions aren't there this year. We know the answer to our problem. And, that's pretty exciting because, that's my department to lead in, and I know I'll lead in that department and bring it. And if I do, I have no doubt that everyone else will follow and we'll win.
All right, well, if Dre knows the answer, my advice would be to use it. Again, maybe perhaps you have it, so use it. What's the key to the matchup tonight, Nick?
Yeah, I totally disagree with Draymond Green, by the way. The problem for them in Game 4 was not a lack of energy. The problem for them in Game 4 and the reason that they weren't able to win Game 4 was they are not hitting three-point shots. It's the reason they win Game 3. And I understand that in Game 3, you can key on the Rockets getting so many extra possessions, the Rockets, the offensive rebounding. Game 4, it was about the Rockets getting the shots they wanted, the Warriors getting the shots the Rockets wanted them to get. This was a 17-point game. I mean, this was a game the Rockets had in firm control of, and then the Rockets damn near, snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. There would have been an egregious loss if KD had hit that 3 or Steph had hit that 3 and forced overtime and the Warriors gone on to win. I don't think tonight's about will the Warriors bring the requisite energy. I think they will. I think they can bring that energy and still lose. I think tonight is about will Steph and Klay have a Steph and Klay game. I think tonight isn't about can this be a game where it's a 2-point game in one direction or the other, and 52 seconds later the Warriors are on a 9-0 run, because that's what they have made their name doing, and usually those 9-0 runs are a couple threes from Steph, one from Klay, because I don't think you can rely on Andre Iguodala to play 40-plus minutes or even 35-plus minutes the way he did the first 3 games of this series. Sean Livingston, who had been their most reliable bench guy, he appears to be done to a degree. So it's going to have to be that starting 5. And even if Draymond brings the energy, they need to make some shots from someone other than Kevin Durant. To me, that's the key for the Warriors tonight.
I think you bring up a couple great points, one being Andre Iguodala, his availability. And I'm going to watch the beginning of the game. I want to watch. He got nicked in game number 4. He got tied up with Chris Paul there. Seemed like he tweaked his knee a little bit. He's had knee problems throughout his career. Let's see what type of health he's in. And I still believe that the amount of minutes he's got to play early in that game, especially the head-to-head battle that he has with James Harden, because he has been the #1 defender on Harden when he's on the court, what toll that takes on him in the 4th quarter. Because in the 4th quarter, they had to switch where he was not healthy enough or had the type of energy that, and KD called it out. And I got to give KD credit. He guarded James Harden those last 5 or 6 minutes in that 4th quarter. So I believe that's a key part to the game. Can the Rockets rebound the basketball? Can they do that? Because if they're able to dominate that, it stops Golden State from getting out. I expect Klay to try to have a big game. If he had a good start in game number 4, wasn't able to follow it up in quarters number 2 and 3. But we have to realize that where this series is and what this series is about. This could be one of the legendary series that we have seen in the NBA in recent history. Is this the team in the Houston Rockets that has battled Golden State the last couple years? Because this is the normal progression in being a champion. You face the champions, they knock you down, you retool, add a player here or two, go back at them. That's the
Throughout NBA history, this is how it's been done.
And I just believe this is going to be a great game in number 5. I do believe that most of the pressure is on the world champion Golden State Warriors.
And just real quick, the question for the Rockets is, are they the Chicago Bulls to the Golden State Warriors Detroit Pistons, keep getting beat down by them, finally break through, or are they the Sacramento Kings to the Golden State Warriors Los Angeles Lakers, keep getting beat down by them and never break through? A big what-if team, a team that seemed like it should have been next, but never could get through the juggernaut in their conference.
On Iguodala, he is listed as probable with a hyperextended knee. He'll probably play, but we'll see if he's 100%.
Can I expand on the Iguodala thing before you move on that? Here's the concern for the Warriors on Iggy. He didn't play more than 30 minutes in a non-overtime game at any point all year long. The last time he played 30-plus minutes prior to this series was the overtime game against these Houston Rockets on January 3rd. First 3 games of this series, 32, 34, 41 minutes. So that is a 4-game workload plus the playoff intensity packed into 3 games. He's played less than his series average in game 4, 29, but that's well above his season average. That would have been one of the highest minutes game he played all year. You're now playing back-to-back nights. He has the hyperextended knee, as you mentioned. That's a real concern when they do not have a bench. Go ahead.
But all that being said, it took just Kevin Durant to have 2 great nights for the Houston to just barely beat the Warriors. I'm wondering how confident they must be going on the road. All you need is one more Warrior to step up, which is bound to happen. You can't have Klay and Steph and Iggy and everyone, Dre, all have bad nights again. It just seems like the Rockets are in maybe not as good a shape as you probably want them to be heading on the road.
Well, there's no team in the NBA has more confidence going against Golden State than the Houston Rockets. It's been well chronicled by my partner, Nick Wright, as far as their winning record during the regular season. Now with it being tied, they're the only organization that has said that's who we're going against. So it might look like on paper, yes, they still have home court. The Warriors do, yes. They're still 2-time, yes. But this is the team that has been gunning for this moment. In last year's moment, man, Chris Paul, he talking about Iggy got hurt. Chris Paul went down in game number 5. So game number 6 and game number 7, when the Rockets had it, man, the Rockets retooled. So it might look like it on paper, but to me, I always thought that Houston was going to be the team. If there was a team in the NBA that could defeat Golden State, I thought it was Houston. I thought it was their style, and they had that little swagger and confidence from the organization. And I believe that little bit it means that kind of extra much in the semifinals here, Nick.
And to your point, Jenna, Klay was really bad in Game 4, but Steph went for 30. The Warriors lost a game where Steph and KD went for 30-plus, right? So that happened. And you can say, well, is Harden going to play to that level? Well, he did all year. Harden in the regular season averaged 36. Harden in this series is averaging 36. And your point that if anyone can beat him, it's the Rockets. Since KD's been on this team, the Warriors are 32-5 in the playoffs against everyone but Houston. And they are 6-5 against Houston. Houston has played a my level for 2 straight years. We'll see if it continues tonight.
And Houston believes they can beat the
Oh,
Warriors.
they do not think the Warriors are better.
Enough. Yeah.
They're the only team in the league that doesn't think the Warriors are better than them.
All right, take a break. Coming up, talk some Dallas Cowboys. Boys want to give Dak Prescott how much money? That's next on First Things First. We got a championship fight for you this weekend. Undefeated Jarrett Hurd puts his super welterweight titles on the line as he takes on Julian Williams. It's Saturday, 8 Eastern on Fox and the Fox Sports app. Time for us to go viral. Charles Barkley and some of the folks over at Inside the NBA held their own version of the Masters. See what do you think of Chuck's swing?
Oh, Chuck's one of the worst golfers ever. He needs some of that money he's making. His lessons won't even help him. He's made even the pros look bad. I've seen him on the golf shows where they were trying to revamp his swing. No, he's awful.
And
I might be able to beat him blindfolded.
Jenna, you're allowed. Listen, you can call it what they call it. It's not their own version of the Masters. They call it the Black Masters, the Inside the NBA crew. Chuck, here's the thing I don't understand about Chuck and golf.
The only thing about them and the Masters have in common, Jenna, that it's golf.
Here's the thing I don't understand how someone can like something as much as Chuck likes golf.
So bad at it.
And do it as often as he seemingly does.
Well, he wasn't that bad a number of years ago. Something happened where he got a little glitch in his swing. He wasn't. I've played golf with Chuck.
No, I believe you.
Yes, it wasn't. But so...
you know, he just...
What? Let me hear it.
No, because you're
Be confident. Say it.
carrying around a little bit more Chuck.
You're saying because he's fat?
I didn't say that. I just said maybe
a lot
if
of
you're
fat
a little...
people are good at golf.
Yes, there are. I'm just talking about Charles Barkley, and I love Charles.
That doesn't
is
account
the
for
highlight.
you, man.
Criticize him. He talked about our show, said our show's early in the morning. He's not up right now.
I'm a big fan.
He's not up right now.
You're right.
So
He's not watching. Chuck is still
can't
sleeping. They were on late last night, man.
He can't go around his body.
Well, something like that. Let's move on. Time for stories to start.
Body shaming again,
I didn't
Jenna.
do it. That is not what I do.
Jenna's just out here body shaming
That is not what
folks.
Jenna does. It's brought to you by the unexpected energy of ExxonMobil. Raptors blew out the Sixers 125-89 last night. Kawhi had 21 points, 13 boards. Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons combined for 20 points and 13 rebounds. Combined. See, what happened to the Sixers last night?
Didn't show up. Man, didn't show up. Most meaningful game of their career, they didn't show up. And with Joel Embiid, with him being ill, I can understand him trying to play, but I thought Ben Simmons would be ultra aggressive. I thought he'd shoot the ball 20 times. I would much rather, if Joel Embiid, if he's feeling that way again, don't play. Like Brooklyn. Allow the young prince to be a young prince compared to last night he played like a toad.
He's been terrible. Ben Simmons been terrible. And by the way, Brett Brown, this game was out of hand from halftime on. How does Embiid under the weather still play 31 minutes? I don't understand that. I don't understand what Ben Simmons done this whole series. 9, 7, and 4. Half his season averages in points, half his season average in assists. He's been awful, and he doesn't have sickness or injury to blame.
This offseason, if we don't see some video of Ben Simmons hibernating in a gym shooting jump shots, overnight stays.
Jenna thinks Jokic be bad at golf, too. Go ahead, Jenna.
That is not what Jenna said.
He can be bad at golf because he's good at basketball.
Nuggets blew out the Blazers 124-98 behind 25 and 19 from Nikola Jokic, perhaps the second best player so far in the playoffs. They now have a 3-2 series lead as it heads back to Portland for Game 6. Nick, is Denver in command of this series? Firm command.
I don't know about firm command. This thing, I believe, is going to go 7, but they already won a previous 7-game series. But I want to talk about Nikola Jokic for a moment because I was very skeptical of his team, because I was skeptical of him going into this postseason. He has been so spectacular the last couple weeks. And in a playoffs where we've seen the young guys without playoff experience, Simmons, Embiid, to name a few, not stepping up to the moment. This guy in year 4 has stepped up repeatedly and has proven guys like me up to this point wrong. So credit to Nikola Jokic. If he doesn't foul out, he has a 20-20 night last night. He has carried them, and he's doing it in heavy minutes, which was another thing I was curious about. Credit to Nikola Jokic for what he's done, basically starting with Game 4 more against the Spurs.
Yeah, if you like basketball and you like big men who have skill. Now, if you want a guy that's high-flying, if you want a guy that's cut up and got a six-pack, no, he doesn't have that. But let me tell you, the fundamentals of basketball, knowing the little things you need to know, how to get his shot off, his fancy passing, his hands are amazing. Also, he is a good basketball player. I do understand, though, how you thought that he was overrated. He went from underrated to overrated to now he's earning a lot of respect.
A lot of respect. He's been great.
To the Lakers now, they still haven't hired Ty Lue as their head coach. Apparently, he was their first choice all along, but they waited until...
Small details they're trying to work out, Jenna. Small details.
Very small. But they waited until Monty Williams was hired by Phoenix to avoid the optics that LeBron has been pulling the strings behind the Lakers curtain. Nick, what are your thoughts about this?
So Mark Stein's the one reporting it, and Mark Stein isn't a high-volume reporter, but he is a near 100% accuracy reporter. If Mark Stein says it, I take it as gospel. This is just another example in the line of the Lakers not knowing what the hell they're doing. Oh, we know who we want to hire. We know who we think would be the good hire. But we're worried about the optics. Not so worried we won't hire him, but we're just going to set our timeline back because we want it to look like he wasn't our first choice, because God forbid we would let our best player and the best player ever have some say in who his coach is going to be. This is insane, but it's honestly par for the course for how the Lakers have run business over the last few months.
Yeah, and it's par for the course for you, too. Everything was right as far as what you said.
One of the greatest players ever. Fine. There
you go.
There you go. Go ahead.
Absolutely, because the greatest player ever would have had them in the playoffs this year.
Sure.
Oh.
All right, but, man, Ty Lue's the coach, man. Stop, Lakers. Let's act like adults. Stop acting like kids, all right? Hire the guy. Let's move on. All right? You need players. You need a strategy for free agency.
You need a plan.
It's just unbelievable. You don't hire him because you're worried about the optics, so you wait. So silly.
Finally, Dak Prescott seems to be in line for a payday. That we assumed. It's the amount that turned a few heads yesterday. Reports are he could earn upwards of $30 million a year in an extension. See, would this be a good move for the Cowboys?
Now, in the contract, because I believe it's going to be at least a 4-year deal, probably 5 years. In there, one of those years, he might make $30 million. All right? If I look at it and look down, in year number 4, he's making $30 million. But if they're averaging $30 million, if you're getting ready to pay Dak Prescott, you're getting ready to set the organization back. Because at that price point, Dak's not doing the right thing for his career. I know his agent's probably talking to him. But playing quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys has always been special. Ever since I've been a little boy, the Dallas Cowboys have been one of the most popular teams, not always because of them winning on the field, but because they're on TV all the time. They've had some stars that attracted people, and they've been pretty good also. So Dak needs to understand where he is in real time, what type of team he's on. And that star on that helmet, the amount of money he can make in the offseason that some of these other market quarterbacks that they're not going to be able to make, I would take that in consideration. And I want to play with some football players. And if their inability to be able to sign Ezekiel Elliott, that would affect Dak's career. So you telling me an extra $2 million a year in salary, $3 million a year, that's going to make the difference? So, no, if that is the number, I believe Dak is making a mistake. I know the Dallas Cowboys are making a mistake. And it's going to be hard to add players through the years to keep Dallas competitive.
Something can be overrated but still good. Something can be underrated but still bad. Someone in a hard-cap sport, how you are paid in comparison to your level of worth is wildly important. So you can be a great player but overpaid. Dak, I would say, is a good player, and they are about to pay him, according to this report, like he is a great player. That immediately makes your team inefficient. That immediately sets you back to C's point.
Why?
Because when you only have, this is called salary cap, $200 million, you have to essentially be able to cobble together 10 to 12 wins of value with that $200 million. And if you are paying a guy who can give you $20 million of value, $30 million of your cap, then you better find that $10 million extra somewhere else. You better have some underpaid guys. You better draft so well that you have guys on rookie contracts that are playing way above their salary slot. To change sports for a moment, why have the Rockets been able to compete with the Golden State Warriors even though they don't have the number of stars? They got a guy like PJ Tucker making $7 million. PJ Tucker's giving them $15 to $18 million of value in this series. So that is, I hate to be so analytical on this, but this is how you build a team. And if Dak is adamant, this is another chance for the Cowboys, in my mind, to have an escape route from their own public bungling of the situation by talking about it, which is we want to pay Dak. We are ready to pay Dak. But if he is demanding to become one of the 4 highest paid quarterbacks in football, we need to see more. You can say we had a contract we extended to him. It would make him rich forever. It is a 9-figure total contract. It puts him in the upper echelon of quarterbacks. But his agent and Dak decided they needed to be paid like Aaron Rodgers, like Pat Mahomes is going to, like Tom Brady. Well, like Tom Brady should be, but he isn't. And he hasn't shown that to us yet. So we're going to wait. And that way they can square the circle of what they've said and what they're going to do. Paying Dak $30 million a year is insane. And if the Cowboys do it, they don't know what they're doing.
This is what I believe about skilled guys in the NFL. Like, certain guys are going to, they're going to be overpaid just based on the numbers and based on the market. But as far as these $30 million quarterbacks are concerned, I just always have had it before they start making $30 million. Quarterbacks, all the great quarterbacks in this league, they're going to win you 4 to 6 games every single year. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, these guys, they're going to win you 4 to 6 games. If it's a wide receiver or a running back, they're going to win you 2 to 4 games if they're great. Dak, at his best, is a good quarterback.
Right.
When he plays his best football, he's good. When he doesn't play his best football, he is a liability. Dak, to me, show me where he had a great game, where he carried the team on his back and had a great game. Those are rare and few and far between. So for me, if you're going to demand that type of salary, you need to be able to tell me you can win 4 to 6 games every single season.
And one last point, very quickly on this. Guys that get overpaid compared to what their production is are almost always guys that have hit free agency. And the whole league can bid on them, and so to win that auction, you have to overpay. When a team goes to a player and says, we're going to pay you before we have to, the reason a team typically does that is because they get a discount. Anyone that tries to extend a contract before the contract is expired, what the employee, what the player is getting is security, and what the company, what the team is getting typically is a bargain, at least to a degree. For the Cowboys to say to Dak, we'll give you the whole store. We'll pay you like you hit free agency.
It's lose for Dallas.
Right. We'll pay you like you hit free agency, and we'll give you the security before we have to. For Cowboys fans should hope this isn't true. $25 million would be too rich for my blood, but that's probably what the market would be. $30 million would be crazy for a guy of his caliber.
All right, let's move on. But let's stay with the NFL. And something we haven't said in many years, the Cleveland Browns are hoping to live up to their sky-high expectations. That'll happen when you trade for one of the best receivers in football in Odell Beckham Jr. However, Odell has already adjusted the proverbial bar, and it's pretty high, recently telling the world, I plan on being there for the next 5 years and trying to bring as many championships there as possible, turning the Browns into the new Patriots. So you see, you buying Odell can help turn the Browns into the new Patriots?
Man, the Patriots don't even know what they're going to be next. Like, so there will be no other Patriot. Just like we thought with San Antonio and what Pop has done over the last 20 years, we'll never be able to see that again. Sports has changed too much. The athletes have changed. But I do understand what he's saying as that in the time he's going to be there, he believes that they can win multiple championships and or compete for championships. If I was interpreting and reading the article and everything and knowing Odell, he's in a good spot in his life. He believes that they are a talented team and they should be competing for championships because he believes in, not more in the Browns, but he believes in Baker Mayfield. He likes what he's seen in Baker Mayfield. He's gone around the league a few times, and he's done some damage. And he's done it with a guy that does not have a great arm, a guy that was not playing great football in Eli Manning. So as a young player, That's what Odell is talking about. The ability for me to be able to do my job. I'm with one of my lifelong friends in Jarvis Landry. I'm at a spot, not only mentally, but physically, how my body feels in this new change in my life. I believe I'm going to play the best football. And I believe I have the best quarterback that I've seen. And the way he throws the football is going to allow me to do my job at a high level. So that's the type of thing that Odell is trying to convey in this article. He's not talking about the New England way, doing it their way. He's talking about competing like New England does each and every year for championships.
But, Nick, there are tons of teams out there that have great quarterbacks and maybe future Hall of Fame wide receivers who are nowhere near the echelon of the New England Patriots. How do these guys stand out? How does he foresee the plan ending up being with the same success as the New England Patriots?
Listen, I think that no one, I agree with Chris. The Patriots, in my mind, given the restraints of the salary cap era, given single elimination tournament in the playoffs, the Patriots' level of success over the last 20 years is the greatest dynasty in modern sports history and maybe all-time sports history, and will not be duplicated. If we replace the word Patriots with Steelers, that to me is more realistic and more, he's conveying the same message. Win the division, be the favorites in the division every year, compete for championships every year. But the thing for Odell is, and this bit him in the Lil Wayne interview, Odell has not learned how to lie in interviews, or maybe he's just not interested in it, because even in that quote, like Odell said, didn't say playing to be here for the rest of my career. And he said 5 years, because he's got 5 years on his contract. Let's see what happens after that. But the other part of that I'm drawing on, that's the honest part, is he expects them to compete immediately. And that is where, once again, the biggest question mark about the Browns is, how will Freddie Kitchens deal with this young team full of expectations when they lose 3 out of 4? Assuming they don't go 12-4 the first year and make an AFC championship game, assuming they do have some rough patches before they have high-level success, how will you deal with a team that is expecting to win at a high level this year?
And Odell knows that Tom Brady's not there, but Odell has a great deal of respect for how New England does business and their ability to be able to win. The kid wants to win, but now he understands also it's not gift wrapped. They do not have the Dolphins. They do not have the Jets. No. They do not have the Buffalo Bills in their division that have gift wrapped 10-win seasons to the Patriots and put them in position they could have home field advantage and all those types of things. But a lot of this is out of respect for them winning in New England.
Sure, and it's the thing I keep saying. This is a great team on paper. I want to see what happens when everyone gets out there with a new head coach and they put it all together. All right, let's take a break. Coming up, are the Golden State Warriors vulnerable tonight against the Rockets? This is First Things First. First things first, Sports Illustrated senior writer Chris Mannix joins us now.
What up, Mannix? Good to see you, my friend.
Oh, good to see you, too.
Did Nick Wright sent the private jet for you?
He sent a lot of text messages.
Okay.
That's what he did.
For sure.
He sent private text messages.
Mannix and I have a lot to talk about. We're good friends.
Do I have to yield my time today?
No, well, we'll see. Not on this segment. This segment, I might yield mine.
Let's start with Warriors-Rockets. Warriors getting ready for Game 5 tonight against Houston. Klay Thompson will try to right his ship after a dismal Game 4 performance, perhaps. Hey, perhaps he's got some work stuff on his mind. He's a free agent this summer and might be closer to leaving Golden State than many think. According to reports, Klay isn't thrilled with his role with the Warriors and is, quote, tired of sitting around and getting the crumbs left behind. Mannix, should the Warriors be worried about Klay?
Not if they're willing to pony up the cash that's needed to keep him now.
And that's
stuff
the
like,
max deal.
That's max, yeah. And look, I don't know specifically, but I think if it can be explained to Klay in the right way, he might take a little bit less than that total number. Not a lot. But look, the last time around he didn't take that full max. He took the flat number max. He didn't take a percentage or anything like that.
But that was a year earlier. I mean, he wasn't hitting true free agency. It was like Draymond. It was an extension.
But he did give them a little bit of a discount in the last contract. So maybe he'd be willing to do that. Look, the Warriors have never been anything but committed to bringing back Klay Thompson. I think there's going to be some significant changes in Golden State this offseason. I mean, Durant, we know, but if Durant walks, they could reboot this whole thing and start to look at moving Draymond Green. He's going to be a free agent in 2020. But there has always been a commitment to keeping that backcourt together. And the frustration, it always seems to come out when your team's playing poorly. The last couple of games, he's had his problems defending James Harden. He hasn't gotten the shots that he's wanted. I'm not overly concerned. It's more of a concern, of course, they lose Kevin Durant, I think, than losing Klay Thompson.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you expect Kevin Durant to, on the first day of free agency, announce his decision?
No.
Me neither. And that is where this becomes a little complicated for Golden State. Because if Golden State is thinking about luxury tax, which I don't think they should, but it's not my money. They're about to go print money in the Chase Center, moving into San Francisco. They're going to have a whole billionaire row of courtside seats. But, listen, guys didn't become billionaires by throwing away money, so maybe they are thinking about luxury tax. And if they think, well, maybe KD is coming back, and if KD does come back, does maxing out Klay Thompson, do we have to? Does it make sense? Should we see if we can get him on a discount? Or if he walks, he walks. If we have Steph and KD, we're fine. That's the only risk they run. Because I expect KD to take his time. And if they do not, in the first moment of free agency, offer Klay the full 5-year, around $200 million max contract, then I think he will look elsewhere. I think he will listen to other offers, and I think he will rightfully feel disrespected. Because, yes, Klay Thompson doesn't get a lot of criticism when he has bad offensive nights. He's in this almost perfect Goldilocks zone of superstar where he makes the max money, and when he's great, we love him, and when he doesn't play well, we don't criticize him. But the other thing Klay does is he makes sure during the regular season Steph Curry can worry about offense and not worry about defense. Now, that's harder in the playoffs when the opposition is hunting down Steph, but Klay Thompson is, and the reason his offense is down in this series, yeah, he's missed some open shots, but he's exhausted. He's chasing James Harden around. He's fighting through screens. He's trying to, again, protect Steph, and Klay has earned it. Klay has been the good soldier. Klay has never had a bad public comment. Klay has always understood his role and thrived in his role. And so if they don't offer him the full amount of money, to me, they're running a major risk.
Well, actually, in this series, he's been guarding Eric Gordon a little more than Harden with Iggy.
Sure.
Facing Harden. So he's had a little reprieve. But in that trade-off right there, you could say that Gordon's had a better series.
Gordon's playing better
than him. To me, I always thought there would be an issue. I've told Nick this privately, that playing with great players, it's a lot of fun, but it's also a problem because you only got one basketball. And as you have seen with this Uber Durant, like when Durant decides to go off, like you got less shots. And Klay is a shooter. So on the initial day, because we went over the press conference and what Klay said when they signed KD. And what did he say, Nick?
He said, because Steph had said, I don't mind sacrificing shots, sacrificing fame, MVP votes. And they repeated that quote back to Klay. And he said, I ain't sacrificing bleep. Just flatly. And by the way, his per year field goal attempts per game, years 1 and 2 with Durant, were the exact same as pre-Durant. He was still getting his 17 shots a game, post-Durant and pre-Durant. This year's been a little different. This postseason's been a little different. And I don't blame him if he's a little frustrated.
And back to you, it's about winning. Because now when you lose or you don't win by the margin that the Warriors have won the first couple years, then you got reason to complain. Because if you're winning, man, everyone is happy. But when you start to, are we going to win? Or do I have to take less money? I do believe it can be a problem. I believe it should be their priority because I do believe that KD is leaving.
Well, look, and I and others have had this conversation with Klay Thompson over the years where we've talked about would he like to be his own man somewhere else? Would he like to have his own franchise? And every time I've had that conversation with him, the answer has come back a quick no because he always says to me and others that he loves winning and to play in an environment where he can win. Now, if they mess around with him with the money, I agree with you. That could open the door for him to leave. But you have to remember, they're not going to just have their first conversation with him on July 1st. They're going to spend weeks, if not months, talking to his agent, talking to Klay Thompson about what it will take for him to stay there. So once July 1st rolls around, the formal contract offer will be what they've discussed with Klay Thompson the weeks prior.
Is your gut that he'll be back with Golden State?
My gut feeling is that he'll be back with Golden State and they reboot this thing around that backcourt with maybe a new cast of characters around them.
Oh, all right. Manic, stick around. Take a break. Coming up.
Please do.
Would the Celtics be better off if Kyrie left? Next on First and First. Back here with Chris Mannix. Mannix, let's talk Celtics-Bucks. Game 5 is tonight. Milwaukee looking to close out this series. It would be the end of Boston's very disappointing season and the possible end of Kyrie Irving in a Celtics uniform. Kyrie's a free agent. The same Kyrie who promised he could and would activate playoff mode when the postseason started. It didn't exactly happen. Now more questions than answers. So, Mannix, I will ask you one of those questions. How disappointing is this Celtics season been? Very.
If they go out tonight in Game 5, it's bitterly disappointing. I thought Game 4 was the most disappointing game of the entire postseason. I mean, losing Games 2 and 3 is one thing. The Bucks shot well over 40% from 3 in those games. Sometimes that happens, but Milwaukee opened the door for them to get back into this series in Game 4 by struggling through the first quarter, by having just 27 points in the first, 15 minutes of game number 4. And the Celtics just kicked it away. Then they kicked it away doing the same things we saw during the regular season. Selfish shooting, bad defense, unwilling passing. They just weren't the team we saw against Indiana, and they weren't the team we saw in Game 1 of this series. So it would be incredibly disappointing if they go out in this Game 5.
So, but I guess, and I'm not trying to be mean,
sure you
but
are.
Why would anyone have expected something different?
Because they're good.
But
because
what
they've got
evidence
more
do we
talent.
have of that?
They've got more talent than Milwaukee.
They do. I don't know about Milwaukee, but the reason why you have expectations on the Celtics, regardless if you're a Celtics fan or not, that they have an organizational support. They got a great home court advantage. They have one of the best coaches that we have in the game in Brad Stevens. They have Kyrie Irving that has proven himself regular season and postseason. They have very good role players, and they got a couple promising young players.
Okay, that's all fair.
And they're deep.
That's all fair, but I cannot let that last statement stand. They have more talent than Milwaukee?
Yes.
Okay, let's just go player for player. Giannis or Kyrie?
Giannis.
Okay, who's the second best player in the Celtics in your opinion? Is it Tatum or Horford?
Well, Tatum has played well below expectations.
No, but so let's call it Horford.
Horford, yeah.
Middleton or Horford? Middleton's an all-star.
Horford's been an all-star for two of the last 3 years.
Of course, but unfortunately for the Celtics, once again, we're not talking about last year.
No, but it's the same. He's the same.
Okay, so coin flip?
Like everybody else, coin flip.
Coin flip, fine. Bledsoe or Tatum?
Tatum.
Oh,
in this series, Bledsoe's been better, but Tatum is a better player.
Based on last postseason, the Celtics have to live in the
How about
now.
the last round?
Right, listen, Indiana was a team that was 16-19 once Victor Oladipo
But still a great
down.
defensive team.
They were an excellent defensive team, which was one of the reasons the Celtics offense struggled.
Not Jason Tatum.
No, Jason Tatum did not. You're correct. It wasn't until this round where he shot 7% from 3 that he struggled. The Celtics were an illusion. The regular season isn't everything, but it can't be nothing. And I know we're going to talk about Kyrie, and this is where Kyrie's going to get even more blame, is Marcus Morris kept trying to sound the alarm. Marcus Morris kept saying there's something wrong with this team, and Kyrie kept saying, nah, man. What was it? They got blown out by the Bulls?
Chicago.
Did you write about this?
I was there.
Yeah, and everyone was panicked, and Kyrie said, man, this was in February?
And as a leader now,
right after the
Kyrie wasn't wrong in doing that.
Well, except
because if Kyrie sounds the alarm, because he did some, he let us in some insight, and it wasn't good earlier in the season. Like, as a leader, regardless of what's going on inside the family, he's not supposed to let us know that. So Kyrie was not wrong in doing that.
But he was taking, like, the leadership mud and throwing it against the wall all season long. Like, he started off by criticizing his younger teammates.
Yes,
he spent the first couple of months doing that. And then come February, he decided to take on the tactic of, well, everything's going to be fine. We're good to go. He's had problems leading this team all season long. I believe, because I've seen it with other teams before, that when they got to the postseason, that some of this minutes envy and the jealousy and the problems they had to deal with inside that locker room would dissipate to a degree where they get at least to the conference finals. That hasn't happened. That hasn't happened in this series most specifically.
There was also a belief that Gordon Hayward would be something he wasn't all year. Instead, he was 4 of 18 the last 3 games.
But Gordon Hayward was really, really good from like mid-February on. And he was really good for large portions of that Indiana series. Gordon Hayward is not the... Are you going to sit here and say Gordon Hayward has been the same player all season?
What I'm going to say is Gordon Hayward in November averaged 10.2 points, in December 10.3.
It doesn't matter.
In January 10.4. He then jumped up in February to 11.5.
That's not the
and
number
in March
you're looking at,
11.6.
and you know it. You know it. That's not the number you're supposed to be looking at there. It's the shooting percentage. percentage. In March and April, his shooting percentage is skyrocketed. That's the difference in Gordon
So
Hayward.
what should they do, Nick? Not play him?
Okay, well, here's what I know. I know that in these last 3 games, your most critical 3 games of the series, he's 4 for 18, averaging 30 points and a minus 49 when he's on the court.
And
I know
he's been
that.
passive. He's been very passive in these last 3 games. I'm agreeing with you on that.
But the other element, and then I guess when you get to the Kyrie stuff, is just for the Celtics. Let me just ask you this way then: if they are the better team, and if they have more talent, then do you think the series isn't over? I mean, we've seen teams come back down from 3-1. They got to win tonight. Then you have a game. Then you have a game in your building, and then all the pressure's on Milwaukee. Do you think Boston can pull out of this?
Oh, I think they can. I think they can win this game tonight. And then you put that pressure on Milwaukee, which has never had to be in this position before, winning a second-round playoff series against a team like Boston. But a lot of it is on Kyrie Irving, who we'll talk about. Kyrie has to play great tonight. He has to have a Kawhi Leonard Game 4 performance tonight.
All right, well, if he doesn't, and that's the end of the Celtics this season, a lot of question marks surrounding Kyrie Irving. Right now, the odds makers have him going to 1, the Nets, Brooklyn Nets, 2, the New York Knicks, and 3, staying with the Celtics. So the question is, do you think the Celtics are better if Kyrie isn't there? They haven't shown that he can help them win in the postseason.
Under 0 circumstances are the Celtics better without Kyrie Irving. Stars win championships in this league. And I love that little engine that could attitude they had last year. Terry Rozier was awesome in the playoffs last year, but Kyrie Irving is a bona fide closer in the prime of his career. It is a no-brainer for them to extend him a 5-year, full max-level contract this offseason. There are other things to look at, but when it comes to do you want Kyrie Irving back or not, 100% you want Kyrie Irving back in the mix.
Yeah, absolutely. You want him back. But what's your feeling about Kyrie coming back? Do you think he's going to come back? And why would he go back to Boston? With all the problems they had in the locker room, behind the scenes and all that? Like, why wouldn't he just go somewhere and try to start up? Because he didn't request to go to Boston when he demanded a trade out of Cleveland. He just ended up there.
No, but he wanted his own franchise. He wanted out from the shadow of LeBron James, and he got it. And he got it with a team that is everything he could have asked for. He got a great general manager in Danny Ainge, a really good head coach in Brad Stevens, and a supporting cast that without him went to a conference finals last year. So he got everything that he asked for. Now, do I think Kyrie's leaving? I have no idea, because there are a lot of variables that we still don't know about yet. What happens on draft lottery night? Do the Knicks get the #1 pick? Does something else happen that shakes up the landscape? What happens with Anthony Davis? That's the big question mark. We talk about this on the show all the time. Where's Anthony Davis going to go? If the one way the Celtics are going to try to convince Kyrie Irving to stay, I'm sure, is to tell him that if you stay, we're going to go all out to get Anthony Davis. And I remain convinced that if the Celtics get in play for Anthony Davis, they are going to get him. They don't care what Anthony Davis says or what Anthony Davis's team around him believes. They will go get Anthony Davis and wholeheartedly believe that 1 year in Boston with Kyrie Irving will convince him to want to be there long term.
But you would agree they will not put all their chips in the middle of the table for Anthony Davis if Kyrie does not first give them the commitment.
100%. But if you are the New Orleans Pelicans and you're David Griffin, you wait.
Okay, no problem. You absolutely can wait. No, I agree with you. You wait till you see all the available offers, and David Griffin knows what he's doing. But if Kyrie does what I've been saying he's going to do for about the last 6 months, which is leave, and if Boston does what I've been saying they're going to do for the last 6 months, which is be out in the second round, which appears is going to happen in about 14 hours. If Kyrie leaves and they don't go all in for Anthony Davis, then the question Danny Ainge has to ask himself is, what was this rebuild? It's Tatum and Brown, Horford with 1 year left, Gordon Hayward with a bad 2 years, $64 million left. What do the if Kyrie walks out the door?
Who is this team?
If Kyrie walks out this door, are they better positioned than Philly?
They're not.
Than Milwaukee?
No. Philly with their talent. No, Milwaukee has Giannis. But they're not, the Cleveland Cavaliers if Kyrie Irving leaves. They're still the core of a team that went to 2 straight conference finals. And you're forgetting the 4 first-round draft picks they could have in this year's draft. Maybe that Memphis pick rolls over and it becomes as appealing a pick as the Brooklyn Nets pick was when they traded for Kyrie Irving. This team still is in a good position to make itself a contender. It just becomes a lot harder. The plan changes from plan A to plan B if Kyrie walks.
It becomes exactly what it was 4 years ago.
Those picks need their own.
But 4 years ago, ago, they didn't know what they had. 4 years ago, they had, cross your fingers and hope the Brooklyn Nets stink. Like, it wasn't anywhere near what they have. They have Jason Tatum, who I believe has the talent to develop into a 25-plus point per game scorer. They've got Jaylen Brown, who I think can be a complete borderline all-star player over the next few years. They still have the core of a good team. I don't know how it gets to a championship level without Kyrie Irving in that mix.
I have never heard a franchise in the history of this long game rely on picks and talk about them. Picks need their own Twitter account. Because, man, we have been talking about them picks. Man, we have been talking about them picks, those picks. Danny Ainge scared me last week with the little scare and everything, a little mild heart attack. I'm like, he gonna die with them picks, man. I mean, y'all got to do something with those. They got to do something with those
I've
picks.
heard this. I've heard it now for years and years. It's the greatest heist in NBA history. The KG and Pierce for all those Nets picks. And now we are going to go into next season with this being a legitimate question. Are the Boston Celtics, with the highest level they got, with those in that era was a conference finals with IT and a conference finals last year, are they in a better position moving forward than the Brooklyn Nets? That's the question that is a legitimate one. And when we're talking about teams in the East, we know Milwaukee's there. We know Toronto's there. The Knicks are going to have Kevin Durant. The Pacers are going to have Victor Oladipo back. The Nets, we will see if they get a star. The Celtics are going to have those picks.
You think the Celtics are in a worse position than the Nets, really?
I think that come free agency, when the Nets are going to be in the business of getting a star, and the Celtics are going to be in the business of, trust me, Bol is going to be the next superstar, and I'm sold that bill of goods, yeah, I think they might be.
I don't think the Nets are going to get one of those top-tier guys. I don't think the Nets even believe that they're going to get one of those top-tier guys. That idea that Kyrie's, to the Nets. Well,
D'Angelo Russell's better than any player on the Celtics other than Kyrie Irving.
Oh, God, okay.
He's having a great offseason, too.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.